The Bible warns about hearing truth without obeying it. James chapter 1 verse 22 says, "Be doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." This verse explains why confidence can exist without change. People listen, agree, and move on unchanged. That creates self-deception, not rebellion. Self-deception feels safe because it sounds faithful. But obedience is the evidence of belief. Without action, truth becomes information instead of transformation. That is why spiritual growth stalls quietly. Part 2 explains how obedience restores clarity. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible predicted an explosion of information long before technology existed. Daniel chapter 12 verse 4 says, "Knowledge shall increase in the last days." It does not say wisdom will increase, only knowledge. That distinction matters. Information without wisdom creates confusion, not clarity. We now have unlimited access to answers, yet little understanding. That imbalance was the warning. More data does not equal more discernment. Without wisdom, knowledge overwhelms the mind. This prophecy describes modern life perfectly. Part 2 explains why wisdom must be pursued intentionally. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. Jesus warned about emotional numbness before the end. Matthew chapter 24 verse 12 says the love of many will grow cold. It does not say hate will increase. It says love will fade. Cold hearts are not loud. They are indifferent. This happens gradually through constant exposure to noise, stress, and distraction. People stop feeling deeply to protect themselves. That emotional withdrawal weakens compassion and conviction. Cold love is more dangerous than open hostility because it feels normal. Part 2 explains how love is restored. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible warned about moral reversal. Isaiah chapter 5 verse 20 says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil." This is not confusion. It is inversion. Truth is not removed. It is redefined. When definitions change, behavior follows. People no longer ask what is right. They ask what is acceptable. That shift erodes moral anchors quietly. This prophecy describes a culture where feelings override truth. When morality becomes subjective, stability collapses. Part 2 explains why truth must remain fixed. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible warns that sincerity does not guarantee truth. Proverbs chapter 14 verse 12 says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is death." Feeling correct is not the same as being correct. This verse explains why good intentions still lead to harm. Human perspective is limited. Without guidance, people mistake preference for wisdom. That is why discernment matters. Truth must be measured, not assumed. This proverb reminds us that confidence can be misleading. Alignment matters more than intention. Part 2 explains how to test truth safely. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. Jesus warned about distraction more than persecution. Luke chapter 21 verse 34 says, "Be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down by dissipation and worries of life." This is not about sin. It is about overload. Too much consumption dulls awareness. Busy minds miss important signals. Distraction makes people unprepared without realizing it. Life becomes full but shallow. That is why vigilance matters. Awareness requires margin. When attention is scattered, discernment weakens. This warning is about mental weight, not morality. Part 2 explains how to regain alertness. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible predicted selective listening. 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 3 says, People will gather teachers who say what their itching ears want to hear. This is not about ignorance. It is about preference. Truth becomes customized. Correction feels offensive. People avoid challenge and choose affirmation. That creates spiritual echo chambers. Comfort replaces conviction. Growth requires discomfort. When truth is filtered by desire, deception feels gentle. This verse explains why clarity feels rare. Part 2 explains how discernment resists comfort-driven belief. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible explains how discernment develops. Hebrews chapter 5 verse 14 says, maturity comes through practice. Discernment is trained, not inherited. It develops through repeated exposure to truth and reflection. Without practice, perception weakens. People remain spiritually immature despite years of exposure. Time alone does not create wisdom. Engagement does. This verse explains why some believers lack clarity. They consume truth without exercising it. Discernment requires intentional effort. Like muscles, it strengthens with use. Part 2 explains practical ways discernment grows daily. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. Jesus explained why truth feels lonely. Matthew chapter 7 verse 13 says the gate is narrow and few find it. Popularity does not indicate correctness. Crowds prefer ease. The narrow path requires intention and discipline. That is why fewer choose it. Loneliness is not failure. It is often confirmation. This verse explains why following truth feels isolating at first. Comfort draws crowds, conviction filters them. The narrow path leads to life, but it demands effort. That effort discourages many. Part 2 explains how perseverance produces peace. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible explains complexity in human thinking. Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 29 says God made mankind upright, but they have sought many schemes. This verse explains unnecessary complication. Truth is often simple. People complicate it to avoid obedience. Schemes replace clarity. Justification replaces honesty. Complexity becomes a shield against responsibility. This creates confusion, not because truth is unclear, but because simplicity demands change. This verse reminds us that distortion begins with avoidance. Clarity returns when honesty replaces strategy. Part 2 explains how simplicity restores peace. Comment, Amen. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible warned about confidence without wisdom. Romans chapter 1 verse 22 says, claiming to be wise, they became fools. This is not about intelligence. It is about humility. When pride replaces reflection, understanding declines. People stop questioning themselves. Certainty grows louder while wisdom fades quietly. This verse explains cultural arrogance. Confidence without accountability creates blind spots. True wisdom remains teachable. Foolishness resists correction. This warning applies to individuals and societies. Pride hardens perspective. Part 2 explains why humility restores clarity. Follow now. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible explains why conversation feels shallow. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 2 says, fools delight in airing their own opinions rather than understanding. Listening requires restraint. Speaking feels productive. This verse explains why noise increases while wisdom declines. People broadcast thoughts without reflection. Expression replaces comprehension. Understanding takes patience. Opinion takes seconds. This imbalance weakens dialogue. Truth requires listening before responding. When voices multiply, clarity fades. This proverb warns against constant expression without learning. Part 2 explains how listening rebuilds understanding. Follow now. Your blessings are on the way. The Bible predicted spiritual hunger. Amos chapter 8 verse 11 says there will be a famine of hearing the words of the Lord. This is not about absence of religion. It is about absence of truth. Spiritual language remains, but substance fades. People search but remain unsatisfied. That is famine. Plenty without nourishment. This verse explains why many feel spiritually empty despite constant content. Noise replaces depth. Consumption replaces transformation. True nourishment requires substance. Part 2 explains how to recognize spiritual nourishment clearly. Follow now. Your blessings are on the way. Jesus explained why people fail to understand truth. Matthew chapter 13 verse 15 says, "Hearts grow dull, ears hear poorly, and eyes close." This is gradual, not sudden. Repeated resistance dulls sensitivity. Understanding fades through neglect. This verse explains spiritual numbness. People hear truth repeatedly without responding. Over time, perception weakens. Sensitivity requires engagement. Neglect creates blindness. This warning is about responsibility, not punishment. Understanding is preserved through responsiveness. Part 2 explains how attentiveness restores perception. Follow now. Your blessings are on the way.